The HOA president was arrested by federal agents on my lawn at 6 a.m., all because she couldn't resist opening my Amazon packages when Karen Mitchell, our power-drunk HOA president, started stealing my mail. She had no idea she'd just committed a federal felony. What happened next turned a simple neighborhood dispute into a federal case that nobody saw coming. Drop your location below, because this story will make you think twice about who's watching your mailbox. My name is Marcus Thompson. And 3 months ago, I thought moving to Willowbrook Lane in suburban Dallas would be my fresh start after a brutal divorce that left me emotionally drained and financially stretched. All I wanted was peace. I'd found this modest 3-bedroomy house with a decent yard, perfect for a freelance graphic designer who worked from home. The neighborhood looked ideal. Tree-lined streets, well-maintained lawns, kids riding bikes. What could go wrong, right? I was about to learn that sometimes the most dangerous predators don't lurk in dark alleys. Sometimes they wear cardigans and carry HOA rulebooks. The moving truck had barely pulled away when I heard the knock. Standing at my door was a woman in her late 40s wearing a pink blazer that screamed, "I demand to speak to your manager." Her blonde hair was styled in that aggressive bob that certain types of women think makes them look professional, but really just makes them look like they're perpetually angry at the world. She held a binder, thick enough to be a phone book, and wore a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Welcome to Willowbrook Lane," she chirped, in a voice sweet as artificial sweetener. "I'm Karen Mitchell, president of the Homeowners Association. We need to go over some rules." I invited her in, thinking this would be a quick, neighborly chat. Big mistake. Huge. Karen spread her documents across my still boxed-up dining table like a general planning. An invasion for the next hour. She detailed every ridiculous rule the HOA had concocted. My grass couldn't exceed 2 inches in height. My house color had to be from an approved palette of what I can only describe as 50 shades of beige. No parking on the street for more than 2 hours. No decorations visible from the road without approval. No this, no that. No breathing without permission. But then she said something that made my skin crawl. Oh, and as HOA president, I have a master key to all the mailboxes the Postal Service gave us delegation authority back in 1998 to help residents when needed. She said it so casually, like it was perfectly normal for one person to have access to everyone's private mail. That first week I tried to settle in and ignore the HOA nonsense. I was too busy setting up my home office and trying to land new clients to worry about grass height. But Karen had other plans. She patrolled the neighborhood daily, and my house seemed to be a particular point of interest. I'd catch her measuring my grass with an actual ruler. She'd photograph my trash cans. If they were out 5 minutes past the approved window, 3 violation notices appeared on my door that week for infractions that didn't even exist. Unauthorized window treatment, visible from street, my crime. Not having curtains, up yet, unapproved, vehicle in driveway. That was the moving truck failure to submit landscaping plan within 72 hours of move-in. I didn't even know that was a thing. The real trouble started when she asked me to join her landscape committee. It was less of an ask and more of a demand, disguised as an invitation. "We meet every Tuesday at 7 p.m. sharp," she informed me. "I'll put you down as attending." I politely declined, explaining that Tuesday evenings were when I had video calls with my biggest client. The temperature in the room dropped 20 degrees. Ayla's fake smile faltered for just a second. "Revealing something darker underneath, I see," she said, gathering her papers. "Well, I do hope you'll reconsider. It's so important for new residents to integrate properly." The way she said integrate made it sound like a threat. That's when weird things started happening first. It was small stuff, an Amazon package I was expecting. Never arrived, the tracking showed delivered, but my doorbell camera, which I'd installed precisely because I work from home and don't want to miss deliveries, showed no delivery truck that day. I figured it was a mistake and got a replacement sent. Then my bank statement didn't show up. Neither did my credit card bill, a wedding invitation from my college roommate. Gone. It wasn't until I missed an important contract renewal notice that I started to piece together what was happening. Someone was stealing my mail, and I had a pretty good idea who. That night, I made a decision that would change everything. I was going to catch Karen Mitchell in the act. Little did I know I was about to uncover something much bigger than just a nosy neighbor with sticky fingers. A pattern became clear over the next 2 weeks, and it was more disturbing than I'd initially thought. Every important piece of mail vanished into thin air. The royalty check for $3.00 for my biggest design project. On the new credit card I'd ordered to replace one that expired. Never made it to my mailbox. Even personal mail wasn't safe. My buddy Steve called asking why I hadn't responded to his wedding invitation. I never got it. That's when I realized this wasn't random theft. It was targeted. Someone was specifically taking mail that looked important, leaving behind only junk mail and grocery store circulars. The precision of it made my skin crawl. My doorbell camera became my best friend and worst enemy. I'd installed it mainly to track packages, but now I found myself obsessively checking the footage. What I saw made my blood boil. Every few days, usually between 3 and 4 in the morning, a figure would approach my mailbox. The camera's night vision wasn't great, but I could make out enough pink robe that aggressive blonde Bob Karen Mitchell was prowling the neighborhood in the dead of night, like some kind of suburban vampire, except instead of blood, she was after our mail. The footage was grainy, but it was definitely her. I even caught her using some kind of tool, probably that master key she'd bragged about to open my mailbox. I decided to confront her, which in hindsight was probably naive. I printed out screenshots from the camera footage and marched over to her house, a McMansion that looked like it was trying too hard to impress people. Karen answered the door in another pink outfit. Did this woman own any other color? And her face immediately shifted into that fake, concerned expression. Marcus, what a pleasant surprise. Is everything all right? I showed her the screenshots. Her reaction was Oscar-worthy. Oh my goodness, is that supposed to be me? That could be anyone. The quality is terrible. You know, installing cameras without HOA approval is a violation. I'll have to find you for that. She actually had the audacity to threaten me while I was confronting her about stealing my mail. That's when my elderly neighbor, Eleanor Bishop, entered the picture. Eleanor was a sweet woman in her late 60s who'd lived in the neighborhood for 20 years. She'd watched me arguing with Karen from her garden and beckoned me over after Karen slammed the door in my face. "Come have some tea, dear?" she said, in a voice that suggested she had stories to tell over Earl Grey and cookies that reminded me of my grandmother's. Eleanor dropped bombshell after bombshell. "This isn't the first time," she whispered, glancing around as if Karen might be listening. "The Johnsons who lived in your house before they moved because of her. She used information from their mail to make their lives hell, found out they were behind on some payments, and threatened to expose them at HOA meetings unless they voted her way." The more Eleanor talked, the darker the picture became. Karen had been doing this for years, using her master key access to rifle through mail and gather dirt on residents. She knew who was getting divorced, who was in financial trouble, who was receiving medical bills. It was like having a spy with access to everyone's secrets. 3 families have moved away because of her, Eleanor continued. She even got the Henderson's son arrested by reporting something she learned from their mail. The boy was just selling his ADHD medication to make ends meet in college. Stupid, yes, but Karen destroyed that family. I felt sick. This wasn't just about missing packages anymore. This was about a woman who turned mail theft into a weapon of control. I spent the next few days documenting everything. Obsessively, I created a spreadsheet. Yes, I went full detective mode, tracking every piece of missing mail, cross-referencing with camera footage and noting patterns. Karen was smart. She didn't hit the same mailbox every night, and she seemed to know exactly which pieces to take: official-looking envelopes, packages from certain retailers, anything from banks or government agencies she'd left behind, junk mail to make it less obvious. But I was onto her game now. I even started sending myself test mail to see what she'd take: a fake invoice in an official-looking envelope, gone a birthday card in a colorful envelope left alone. She had a system, and I was cracking her code. The situation escalated when I received a notice from the IRS about unfiled taxes. My heart nearly stopped. I'd filed everything on time, but apparently they'd sent multiple notices that I never received. I was looking at penalties and interest that could destroy my freelance business. That same week, I almost lost a $15,000 contract because I didn't respond to a time-sensitive revision request sent by mail. The client had specifically requested physical documents for legal reasons, and when I didn't respond, they nearly went with another designer. I managed to save it with some fast talking, but the close call sent me into a spiral. This woman wasn't just stealing mail, she was stealing my livelihood, my peace of mind, my sense of security in my own home. A final straw came on a Thursday night. I was working late on a project when I heard my phone buzz with a motion alert from the doorbell. Camera there, she was clear as day at 2:47 in the morning, rifling through my mail, but this time was different. She pulled out her phone and took photos of something before putting the mail back. That's when it hit me. She wasn't just stealing anymore, she was documenting building files on all of us. I saved the footage with shaking hands, my mind racing. Then my phone rang. It was my mother's number, but the voice on the other end was my sister Marcus. "I've been trying to reach you. Mum's in the hospital. We sent you letters because you weren't answering your phone. Did you get?" Them I hadn't. My own mother was sick, and I didn't know because Karen Mitchell had stolen the letter. That's when I knew this had to end, but I had no idea that Karen's notebook contained something that would change everything. My name with the words, Phase 2, make him move out, written next to it. The discovery of Karen's notebook entry about me changed the game entirely. This wasn't random harassment. I was being specifically targeted for removal. I spent hours analyzing the footage where I glimpsed her notebook, enhancing the image until I could make out more details. The notebook was full of names, addresses, and what looked like action plans. Some names were crossed out, presumably people who'd already moved. My name was near the bottom of an active list. The realization that I was part of some sick project made my hands shake with rage. But rage wouldn't solve this. I needed to be smarter than her. I started my counter-offensive with technology. If she could document everything, so could I. I installed hidden cameras, not just the doorbell ones she knew about, but tiny ones concealed in fake rocks and birdhouses around my property. I bought a locking mailbox, but of course, HOA rules required the approved vintage style, which Karen naturally had a master key. To the irony wasn't lost on me. I was literally paying dues to an organization that gave my tormentor legal access to my mail, but I kept the locked box anyway, figuring it might slow her down or make her sloppier. I also started having important mail sent to a post office box across town, though that meant driving 20 minutes each way just to check mail, like some kind of fugitive in my own neighborhood. The psychological warfare escalated quickly. Karen began leaving friendly notes on my door about increasingly trivial violations. My garbage can was 3 in too far from the curb. My porch light was too bright. My car was parked at a disruptive angle. Each note ended with a passive, aggressive smiley face and a reminder about the importance of community standards. But I noticed something interesting in my surveillance footage. Before leaving each note, she would spend several minutes at my mailbox. She was still checking, still hunting for information. I decided to give her something to find. I ordered fake documents online, bogus legal papers, mock financial statements showing massive debts, even a fake eviction notice from a previous residence. Then I waited. Sure enough, Karen took the bait. The fake documents disappeared, and within days, her behavior changed. She seemed almost giddy during her patrols, spending extra time near my house, sometimes bringing other HOA board members to point at imaginary violations. I recognized one of them, Frank Sullivan. A guy in his 50s who lived 3 houses down. Frank had seemed friendly when I moved in, even helped me carry some boxes. Now he was following Karen around like a loyal puppy, nodding along as she gestured at my apparently offensive existence. That's when I realized Karen wasn't working alone. She had a network of supporters, people she'd either recruited or coerced into her schemes. The confrontation I had been dreading came on a Tuesday night. I was in my garage working on organizing boxes. When I heard footsteps on my driveway, it was 11:15 at night. Way too late for a social visit. Through the garage door window, I could see Karen's silhouette. She wasn't alone. Frank was with her, along with a woman I didn't recognize. They were just standing there, not knocking, not calling out, just lurking. Then Karen's voice drifted through the door, loud enough to be heard, but quiet enough to maintain plausible deniability. "Such a shame about his financial troubles," she stage whispered, "and that eviction from his last place. No wonder his wife left him. Some people just can't maintain proper standards." They were using my fake information against me, but they'd added their own twisted narrative about my divorce. I wanted to burst out and confront them, but something held me back. Instead, I quietly recorded everything on my phone. After about 10 minutes of their harassment disguised as concern, they finally left. But the psychological damage was done. I couldn't sleep that night, jumping at every sound, wondering when they'd return the next morning. I found a formal HOA complaint in my mailbox. Not delivered by mail, but placed there by hand. I was being summoned to a disciplinary hearing for multiple violations detrimental to neighborhood harmony. The hearing was in 3 days. They were moving to officially force me out. That's when I made a decision that would prove crucial. Later, I called my lawyer friend from college, not for legal help, but for advice on documentation. Keep everything he told me, every note, every video, every interaction. Build a case like you're going to court, because you might be. So I created a timeline, printed screenshots, saved every piece of evidence. I also started researching mail theft laws, which is when I stumbled upon something interesting. Mail theft wasn't just illegal, it was a federal crime. And there was an entire federal agency dedicated to investigating it. The United States Postal Inspection Service. Most people don't even know they exist, but they're basically the FBI of mail crimes. I bookmarked the information, not knowing yet how crucial it would become the night before the HOA hearing. Things took a terrifying turn. I was working late, trying to finish a project before dealing with Karen's kangaroo court. When my phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number appeared on my screen. "Stop digging, or your divorce papers become public." Yes, I have those too. Kay, my blood ran cold. Those papers contain personal information about my ex-wife, financial details, and deeply private reasons for our split. But that wasn't even the worst part. The timestamp on the text showed it was sent at 11:43 p. As I stared at the message, I heard a creak from upstairs. My house was making settling noises, except I was home alone, and that sound came from inside my bedroom. The text hadn't just been sent from an unknown number. It had been sent from inside my house. My hands shook so badly I nearly dropped the phone. The timestamp was 11:43. Exactly. 7 minutes ago, I forced myself to breathe, to think the security system hadn't triggered, but when I checked the app, my blood ran cold. Someone had disabled the backyard cameras 30 minutes earlier using the main breaker. Only someone familiar with my house would know where that was. The smell hit me. Then Karen's signature vanilla musk perfume lingering in my bedroom like a calling card. I found more evidence in the morning. Muddy footprints by the window, smaller than mine, and something else that made my skin crawl. My laptop had been moved. The browser history showed someone had searched through my email drafts, my financial documents, even my therapist appointments. She hadn't just broken in to deliver a threat she'd been studying. Me learning my vulnerabilities. Preparing for war, I grabbed a baseball bat from my garage and crept upstairs, my heart pounding so loud I was sure any intruder would hear it. Each step on the stairs seemed to echo through the house when I reached my bedroom. I flipped on the lights ready to swing. The room was empty, but the window was open, a window I always kept locked. On my bed was a manila envelope I'd never seen before with trembling hands. I opened it. Inside were photocopies of my mail from the past 2 months, including the divorce papers, annotated in Karen's handwriting, with notes like leverage and weak point, ex-wife's address. She'd been in my house. This psychopath had broken into my home to deliver a threat. I called the police immediately, but their response was frustratingly predictable without proof of forced entry. The window showed no signs of damage, and with only photocopies that I couldn't prove were stolen, they treated it as a civil matter. Sounds like a HOA dispute, the officer said, barely concealing his disinterest. Maybe try to work it out with your neighbors. I wanted to scream, work it out with someone who breaks into houses to threaten people, but I knew pushing would only make me look like the crazy one. That's exactly what Karen was counting on, make me seem unstable, paranoid, difficult, classic, gaslighting executed with suburban perfection. The next morning, I discovered just how deep Karen's network ran. Frank Sullivan approached me as I was getting my mail, or trying to, since my box was empty again, despite expecting several deliveries. "Hey, Marcus," he said, with fake concern. "Heard you had some trouble last night. Everything okay?" I hadn't told anyone except the police about the break-in. The only way Frank could know was if Karen told him, and the only way Karen could know was if she was involved. I played dumb, saying I just had a bad dream. Frank's relief was visible. "Oh, good, you know Karen's worried about you. We all are moving to a new place after a divorce. It's got to be tough. Maybe you should consider whether this neighborhood is the right fit." That conversation opened my eyes to something I'd been missing. I'd assumed Frank was just another one of Karen's victims, but he was actively complicit. Over the next few days, I observed more carefully. Frank's HOA fees were always mysteriously waived at meetings. Janet Wilson, another board member, got the premium parking spot. Despite regulations saying it should rotate, Karen was buying loyalty with favors, creating a network of people who owed her. They'd turn a blind eye to her crimes in exchange for small privileges. It was like a suburban mafia with mail theft as the primary racket. The HOA hearing was a joke. As expected, they'd scheduled it for 2:00 in the afternoon on a Wednesday, knowing most people would be at work. I had to cancel a client meeting to attend. The courtroom was Karen's living room, decorated with so much pink it looked like Barbie had exploded. Karen sat at the head of the table like a queen holding court, flanked by Frank and Janet. They went through my violations with theatrical seriousness. Brass. Too long it wasn't unauthorized modifications, the security cameras creating a hostile environment by existing. Apparently, I presented my defense calmly, showing photos, proving my grass was regulation. Height, pointing out that security cameras weren't mentioned in the bylaws, but I could see in their eyes that the verdict was already decided. "Mr. Thompson," Karen said, her voice dripping with false sympathy, "it's clear you're struggling to adapt to our community standards. Perhaps you'd be happier somewhere with a more relaxed atmosphere." Janet nodded along like a bobblehead. "We're prepared to offer you a generous solution. If you agree to list your house within 30 days, we'll waive all fines and provide a glowing recommendation to help with the sale." It was extortion, plain and simple. "Move out voluntarily, or we'll make your life hell until you crack." I stood up slowly, making eye contact with each of them. "I'll think about it," I said, keeping my voice level despite the rage burning inside me. "I'll need everything in writing, of course. For my lawyer," the mention of a lawyer made them shift uncomfortably. "Good, let them sweat a little." As I left, I heard Karen mutter to Frank, "He doesn't have a lawyer, I've seen his mail." That's when it hit me. She knew everything about my life, my finances, my connections, all from stealing my mail, but she'd made one crucial mistake. She'd gotten overconfident that night. I did something I should have done weeks earlier. I contacted the one law enforcement agency that would take mail theft seriously, the United States Postal Inspection Service. Their website was like something from the 90s, but the crimes they investigated were serious mail fraud, identity theft, and yes, mail theft. I filled out their online complaint form with shaking hands, uploading every piece of evidence I'd collected. The security footage, the photos of Karen's notebook, the timeline of missing mail, even the threatening text and break-in I wrote. A detailed statement explaining how this wasn't just about missing packages, but about a woman using mail theft to control and terrorize an entire neighborhood after hitting submit. I sat back and wondered if anyone would even read it. These federal agencies probably got thousands of complaints. What were the odds they'd care about suburban drama in Dallas? 2 days later, I got my answer. My phone rang from a blocked number. "Mr. Thompson, this is Inspector Rodriguez with the United States Postal Inspection Service. I've reviewed your complaint. We need to meet. Can you come to our field office tomorrow morning?" My heart leapt. Finally, someone was taking this seriously. But then Rodriguez added something that made my blood run cold. "And Mr. Thompson, be careful. Based on what you've submitted, you're dealing with something bigger than just your neighbor. We've been tracking similar complaints across 7 states. Your neighbor isn't working alone. She's part of a network." Rodriguez pulled up a video on his tablet. This was recorded at a hotel in Houston last year. Recognize anyone? The footage showed Karen at a podium addressing a room full of people. "Welcome to the HOA Leadership Summit." Her recorded voice said, "Today I'll teach you how to maintain absolute neighborhood control through strategic information gathering." The audience was taking notes like eager students. Rodriguez fast forward, here's the best part. Karen was now demonstrating mail interception techniques using a dummy mailbox. For just $500 annual membership, you get access to our private forum, monthly strategy calls, and my personal collection of effective violation templates. She was running a goddamn franchise. Your name came up in their forums. 2 months ago, Rodriguez added, showing me a screenshot. You were marked as a priority target. Because you work from home, they figured you'd be harder to push out than someone with a regular job. The federal building in downtown Dallas was exactly what you'd expect. All concrete and bulletproof glass, with security tighter than an airport. Inspector Rodriguez met me in a sterile conference room that screamed, "Your tax dollars at work." He was nothing like I'd imagined, mid-40s, built like a former athlete with eyes that had seen too much. He spread my evidence across the table like a detective examining crime scene photos for 30 seconds that felt like 30 minutes. He said nothing, just studied everything with an intensity that made me nervous. Finally, he looked up. "Mr. Thompson, what you've uncovered isn't just mail theft, it's a federal conspiracy." Rodriguez pulled out a map of the United States dotted with red pins. Texas, Oklahoma, Louisiana, Arkansas, and beyond. "We've been tracking this for 2 years, he explained. HOA presidents using mail theft to control neighborhoods, sharing tactics, even trading information about residents across state lines. Your Karen Mitchell, she's what we call a hub. She trains others, shares, methods, coordinates operations." I stared at the map, feeling like I'd stumbled into a spy movie. "So what do we do?" "That depends on how far you're willing to go to stop her," I said, as Rodriguez leaned back and studied me. Without hesitation, I replied, "Whatever it takes. She broke into my home. She's destroying lives. I want her in federal prison." Rodriguez smiled for the first time. "Good, because I need your help to build an airtight case. We could arrest her tomorrow, but a good lawyer might get her off with a slap on the wrist. I want to catch her red-handed, make it impossible for her to wiggle out." That's when I proposed something that made Rodriguez raise an eyebrow. "I know her patterns," I said, pulling out my phone to show him my analysis, 5 nights of footage study. She only steals on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday between 3 and 3:30 a.m. She checks mail with her phone, flashlight. First, only takes envelopes from banks, government agencies, or companies. She recognizes she can't resist anything that looks like IRS, correspondence, or refund checks. I've basically cracked her algorithm. "You'd make a good detective," Rodriguez admitted, clearly impressed. "So what's your plan?" I laid out my idea. Use her predictability against her. Send bait mail she couldn't resist, but make it traceable. What if we send something on Monday evening? I suggested it sits in the mailbox overnight, and by Tuesday at 3 ballet. She's expecting it to be there. She'll think it's routine mail delivery. But here's the kicker. We use that special dye that reacts to skin oils. Even if she wears gloves, her hands will sweat. Inside them, the dye activates with moisture and won't wash off for days. Rodriguez nodded slowly. "We've used similar tactics, but we need more than just theft. We need proof of the larger conspiracy." That's when things got interesting. Rodriguez explained that catching Karen with marked bills wasn't enough. We needed evidence of her network, her methods, her long-term pattern of crime. "This has to be a RICO case," he said, "using the law typically reserved for organized crime. We need to show ongoing criminal enterprise." I thought about Eleanor Bishop and her stories. What if I told you there might be a witness who's been documenting this for years? Rodriguez leaned forward. "Tell me everything." I arranged for Eleanor to meet with Rodriguez the next day. What she brought to that meeting changed everything. Eleanor hadn't just been watching, she'd been recording. After Karen made the Johnson family move, I started keeping track. She explained, pulling out an old smartphone my daughter in Florida sent me. This phone told me to record anything suspicious. She never got my letters. You see, I'd write every week, but she never received them. Now I know why. Eleanor had dozens of voice recordings, videos of Karen at mailboxes, even audio of Karen bragging. At a HOA meeting about keeping the neighborhood under control through information management. But the bombshell was a recording from 2019 where Karen explicitly said, "I read everyone's mail, that's how I keep this place running smoothly." Rodriguez's eyes lit up. "Mrs. Bishop, you're the MVP here. This is exactly what we needed." Eleanor blushed. "I just wanted to get letters from my daughter again." The plan came together quickly. After that, Rodriguez would get authorization for a full sting operation. We'd use multiple types of bait mail, hidden cameras with federal warrants, and most importantly, we'd coordinate with other field offices to hit the entire network simultaneously. If we do this right, Rodriguez explained, we take down not just Karen, but her whole operation in one sweep. But Karen must have sensed something was changing over the next few days. She escalated her harassment dramatically. She had my lawn measured daily, sometimes twice. She left violation notices for things that didn't exist: unauthorized, bird feeder, non-compliant doormat, excessive, shadow, cast by tree. It was like she was trying to force me out before something happened. Then came the physical intimidation. I found nails scattered in front of my garage, perfectly positioned to puncture tires. My outdoor water faucet was tampered with, causing a flood that nearly damaged my foundation. Each incident was just plausible enough to be accidental, but the pattern was clear. Frank Sullivan became her enforcer, showing up at odd hours to check on things. I caught him trying to peer through my windows. One evening, when I confronted him, he claimed he was investigating a suspicious noise. The gaslighting was reaching professional levels. They wanted me to crack, to lash out, to do something that would justify forcing me out. But I held steady, documenting everything, sending updates to Rodriguez just a few more days. He assured me the warrant's almost approved. Keep playing the victim, playing. Victim got harder when Rodriguez showed me how they doctor the fake IRS letters. Each envelope had microscopic serial numbers, invisible ink that would transfer to fingers and paper, that recorded fingerprints better than any crime scene kit. She touches this, we own her, he explained, but Karen almost caught us during preparation. I was in my garage organizing the bait mail when she appeared at my window. My heart stopped. I quickly grabbed my phone, pretending to argue with a client. No, I can't take a pay cut, I shouted at nobody. The divorce already cleaned me out. Karen's eyes lit up at this fake information, and she skirred away to no doubt update her files. Tommy texted me later that night with disturbing news. It heads up Karen's recruiting some college kid to help her monitor mail delivery patterns. She's getting paranoid, bro. Watch your back. Playing the victim was getting harder when I wanted to fight back. The night before the sting operation was set to launch, my phone rang. It was Tommy Davis, the young delivery driver who'd become an unexpected. Ali's voice was panic. Bro, you need to get home right now. Karen's at your house with 3 HOA board members and a locksmith. They're saying you're in violation of some emergency clause. They're changing your locks. She knows something, man. This isn't normal, even for her. They look serious, like scary serious. I heard one of them say something about getting him out tonight before it's too late. Dude, I think she knows about the investigation. I broke every speed limit getting home. My mind racing with possibilities. If Karen knew about the investigation, she might destroy evidence, flee, or worse, turn the neighborhood against me. Before the feds could act, Rodriguez had given me strict instructions: maintain cover at all costs. But how could I maintain cover when they were literally changing my locks? I screeched into my driveway to find a scene from a suburban nightmare. Karen stood on my porch like a general commanding troops, directing a locksmith, while Frank and Janet flanked. Her like bodyguards, a small crowd of neighbors had gathered, probably summoned by Karen, to witness my eviction. Mr. Thompson, Karen said with venomous sweetness, so glad you could join us. As per HOA bylaw 17-3 subsection C, the board has the emergency authority to secure abandoned or shin properties. Since you've been reported as potentially unstable and dangerous to the community, we're taking protective action. The locksmith looked uncomfortable but kept working. I noticed he was avoiding eye contact, probably knew this was sketchy but needed the money. I pulled out my phone, making sure to record everything. This is my house. I'm standing right here. How is it abandoned? Karen's smile widened. Oh, but you've been making plans to leave. Haven't you have evidence of you contacting real estate agents, lawyers, even law enforcement with wild accusations, classic signs of someone planning to flee after causing trouble? She was trying to force my hand, make me react violently, so she could justify everything. But I'd learned her game instead of exploding. I spoke calmly and clearly for the recording. I'm not abandoning anything. This is a legal eviction. I'll be contacting my lawyer immediately. Then I played my ace. I've also noticed several pieces of mail missing recently. Federal mail, I've already filed a report with the Postal Inspection Service. They take mail theft very seriously. The color drained from Karen's face for just a second before she recovered. How dare you accuse me of, but she was cut off by the sound of engines. Multiple engines, 3 black SUVs turned onto our street, moving with the deliberate pace of predators closing in. No sirens, no rush, just inevitable approach. The crowd murmured nervously as the vehicles positioned themselves strategically. One blocked the end of the street, another parked directly in front of Karen's house, and the third stopped at my driveway. Inspector Rodriguez stepped out of the lead vehicle, and I had to suppress a smile. He was in full federal agent mode, badge visible hand, resting casually near his service weapon face, expressing the kind of board authority that says, "I do this every day." Or, "Mrs. Mitchell," Rodriguez called out, his voice carrying across the yard. "I'm Inspector Rodriguez with the United States Postal Inspection Service. We need to speak with you regarding an ongoing federal investigation." Karen tried to maintain her composure, but her voice cracked slightly. "This is a private HOA matter. You have no authority." Rodriguez cut her off. "Ma'am, mail theft is a federal crime under Title 18, Section 1708 of the United States Code. We have a warrant to search your property and several others. I suggest you step away from Mr. Thompson's house and come with us voluntarily." The locksmith dropped his tools and practically ran to his van. Frank and Janet backed away like Karen had suddenly become radioactive. The crowd of neighbors grew larger, phones coming out to record the drama. Karen's mask finally slipped completely. She pointed at me, her face contorted with rage. You set me up. This is entrapment." "I'll sue you for everything." Rodriguez stepped between us. "Ma'am, I'm going to need you to calm down. Nobody's under arrest. Yet we're executing a search warrant. Your cooperation will be noted." But I knew. And from the look in Rodriguez's eyes, he knew too. This was theater. The real operation was happening right now at Karen's house. As if on cue, Rodriguez's phone buzzed. He listened briefly, then nodded. "Ma'am, I'm now placing you under arrest for mail theft, conspiracy to commit mail fraud, and violation of federal postal regulations. You have the right to remain silent." As he read Karen her rights, 2 agents approached with handcuffs. That's when we all saw it. Her hands were bright blue. The dye from the bait mail had worked perfectly. She'd taken it just hours earlier, probably planning to use whatever she found against me at the eviction. Now her hands glowed like a neon confession under the afternoon sun. "What is this?" Karen shrieked, staring at her blues hands in horror. "What did you do to me?" I couldn't help myself. I stepped forward, coffee cup in hand. I'd actually brought coffee to my own eviction. How's that for confidence? And said loud enough for everyone to hear, "That's federal evidence. Blue Karen, looks good on you maybe. They'll let you keep the color in federal prison." Eleanor Bishop emerged from the crowd, moving with more energy than I'd seen from her in weeks. 40 years I've lived in America, she announced to everyone. Never seen karma work so fast. She turned to Rodriguez, "Officer, I have recordings. You might want to hear 3 years' worth." Tommy Davis was already filming, narrating for his social media. "Yo, this is the HOA president who made our lives hell. Look at her Smurf hands. This is going viral, bro." The crowd began to clap. slowly at first, then building to genuine applause. People who'd suffered under Karen's reign were watching their tormentor finally face justice. As the agents led Karen to the SUV, she turned back one more time. "This isn't over. Marcus, my lawyer, will destroy you," but her threat felt empty now, especially with her hands glowing like she'd been playing in radioactive paint. The crowd's energy shifted as neighbors began sharing their stories. Right there on my lawn, Mrs. Patterson burst into tears. "My son lost his scholarship because the acceptance letter never arrived. We missed the deadline by 2 days. Another man I had never spoken to stepped forward. She stole my insulin delivery notifications. I ended up in the hospital." The stories poured out like a dam, breaking years of pain and manipulation, finally given voice. Frank Sullivan tried to slink away, but an agent intercepted him. "Sir, we're going to need you to come with us." His face went white inside Karen's house. Agents were discovering what they'd later describe as a command center, an entire room dedicated to her operation, filing cabinets labeled by street address, a whiteboard with delivery schedules, even a spreadsheet tracking which residents were most likely to receive valuable mail. The godmother of suburban surveillance had been thorough. Rodriguez approached me. As the scene calmed down, the search team just called. "Your neighbor had quite the operation. We found over 800 pieces of stolen mail, dating back 3 years, 47 victims that we've identified so far. There's also about 25,000 in cash and multiple notebooks documenting her intelligence gathering on residents." He paused, then added, "You did good, Mr. Thompson. Your analysis of her patterns, the dye suggestion, that was clever work." I looked at my house where the locksmith had abandoned his tools then at the dispersing crowd of neighbors who finally felt free. "I just wanted to get my mail," I said. And for the first time in months, I actually smiled, but Eleanor grabbed my arm, her face suddenly serious. "Marcus, there's something else you need to know, the recordings." I gave the inspector. They go back to 2019. Karen's been doing this for years, and she kept records of everything she stole. She handed me a flash drive. "This was in your mail yesterday. It's addressed to you from Karen." The flash drive from Karen contains something I never expected, a full confession disguised as a threat. In her arrogance, she'd created a video message, planning to blackmail me with everyone's secrets. Instead, she'd accidentally documented her entire criminal enterprise. The video showed her in her home office, surrounded by stolen mail, bragging about her system for controlling the neighborhood. "Marcus Thompson thinks he's so smart," her recorded voice sneered. "But I have everything, every resident's financial records, medical information, family secrets, one word from me and I could destroy any of them." She'd meant it as intimidation. Instead, it became exhibited in her federal trial. The next few weeks felt like a movie montage. Federal agents interviewed every resident, uncovering years of theft and manipulation. The investigation revealed that Karen had used stolen mail to blackmail residents into compliance force families. To move and maintain her iron grip on the HOA, she'd destroyed marriages by revealing affairs discovered through credit card statements, gotten people fired by anonymously sending their medical information to employers, and even reported residents to immigration authorities based on documentation she'd stolen. The depth of her cruelty was staggering, but for every crime they uncovered, they also found victims ready to testify. The trial was swift. Federal prosecutors, "Don't mess around," Karen tried to play the victim, claiming she was just a concerned citizen trying to maintain neighborhood standards, but the blue dye on her hands in the arrest photos, the video confession, Eleanor's recordings, and testimony from dozens of victims painted a different picture. The judge wasn't sympathetic. Heron received 18 months in federal prison, 3 years of supervised release, $50, €0 in restitution, and a lifetime ban from serving in any HOA capacity. She was also prohibited from going within 50 FT of any mailbox not registered to her address, a detail that made me smile every time I thought about it. Frank Sullivan and Janet Wilson, her accomplices, got off lighter, but not unscathed. Both received 6 months probation and substantial fines for their roles in the conspiracy. Frank had to pay back 5 years of waived HOA fees, while Janet lost her premium parking spot and faced civil lawsuits from families. She'd helped Karen terrorize the entire HOA board, resigned in disgrace, leaving a power vacuum that needed filling. That's when the neighborhood did something beautiful. They nominated Tommy Davis, the 22-year-old delivery driver who'd stood up to Karen to run for president. Well, technically, they nominated his mother, but everyone knew Tommy would be the real force for change. The special election was a landslide, Tommy's first act. As the power behind the throne, he abolished every single ridiculous rule Karen had implemented. New rule number 1, he announced. At his first meeting, everyone has the right to receive their mail without fear. Rule number 2, mind your own business. Rule number 3, there is no... Rule number 3, because we're adults who don't need a handbook to be decent neighbors. The room erupted in applause within days. The neighborhood felt different. People smiled more, waved at each other, actually talked. Instead of reporting violations, it was like watching a community wake up from a nightmare. The viral video Tommy posted of Karen's arrest exploded across social media. Blue Hands Karen became a meme with 2 million views in the first 48 hours. News outlets picked up the story, and suddenly I was getting interview requests from media across the country. But the attention wasn't what mattered. What mattered were the emails from other HOA victims sharing their own stories, the messages from people who'd learned about the Postal Inspection Service and were filing their own complaints. Karen had tried to make me feel powerless and alone. Instead, she'd accidentally created a movement of people standing up to her tyranny. Eleanor Bishop became the neighborhood's honorary grandmother at the celebration barbecue she hosted. The community presented her with a Defender of Democracy award. Tommy's idea, naturally. I just wanted to get letters from my daughter, she said, tears in her eyes, but I ended up helping save my whole neighborhood. Her daughter flew in from Florida for the ceremony, their first reunion in years, where they could freely exchange letters without fear, watching them embrace, knowing that Karen's theft had kept them apart, reminded me why fighting back had been worth every stressful moment. As for me, life slowly returned to normal, or better than normal. My design business thrived once I could reliably receive contracts and payments. The 1500 contract I'd almost lost turned into a long-term relationship with a client who admired how I'd handled the crisis. My mother recovered from her illness, and yes, she could now send me get-well cards that I'd actually received the divorce papers Karen had tried to weaponize. They stayed private where they belonged. Sometimes the best revenge is simply living well, and I was determined to do exactly that in the house. Karen had tried so hard to force me. From 6 months later, I received a letter. That made me laugh out loud. It was from the National Association of HOA Reform, inviting me to be their spokesperson, the man who brought down a mail theft ring using federal law, they called me. Tommy joked I should accept and use the title Marcus Thompson Federal Prison Travel Agent, courtesy of Eleanor's suggestion, but I declined. I'd had enough of HOA drama to last a lifetime, though I did agree to write a guide about residents' rights and federal mail law that ended up being shared over 50 times online. The last I heard, Karen was spending her time in federal prison teaching origami classes. Apparently, she'd always been good with paper. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. She'd spent years stealing papers that didn't belong to her. And now she was stuck, folding them into flowers. Sometimes justice has a sense of humor. As I write this, I'm sitting on my porch, painted a decidedly non-approved shade of blue, watching Tommy measure someone's grass with a ruler 2.5, and he shouts, "Perfect height for maximum comfort." The neighbor laughs, we all do, because in the end we learn that community isn't about rules and control. It's about respect, mutual support, and the basic human decency to let people receive their mail in peace. Looking back, Karen Mitchell thought stealing my mail was harmless fun. She thought wrong, dead wrong, because that single action started a chain of events that brought down her entire empire of suburban tyranny. So if you're watching this and thinking about messing with someone's mail, remember Karen's blue hands, remember that federal prison. Orange doesn't match with pink. And remember that sometimes the quiet guy who just wants to receive his packages might be the one who brings your whole world crashing down. Don't touch other people's mail. It's not just illegal, it's federal. And if you see blue hands trending on social media, well now, you know that's the color of karma coming home to roost.